just going to finish off. I'm going to start from where I finished off. And I was explaining about my neutrophils being down with the doctor. My neutrophils are your white blood cells that fight infection. So when your body receives these infections or picks up an infection more like, or a bug or something, we have what you call T cells, and the T cells recognise the infection that's come in because it may be an old infection or it's experienced this infection before, and it tells your bone marrow that there's an invader coming in, and your body starts to produce the neutrophils so that it can fight off the infection. Well, when I was told I was neutropenia, I was 0.5. My neutrophils was 0.5, so that meant that I had no immune system whatsoever. And with me asking the doctor, is it wise for me to go back into work, knowing this now, that I work with people who are potentially carrying infections all of the time? Doctor, yes, it's still okay to go into work. I went into work at the night time because I was on an evening shift. I saw my manager. I explained to my manager what the doctor had told me, and I had 5 days annual leave in work. And I asked my manager, could I have the 5 days annual leave and go down to the hospital to sort things out? I went down to the hospital. It was authorised. I went down to the hospital, and I went into the hospital with a scab in my nose and in my ear, which I thought, I didn't really think much of it at the time, but because I was neutropenia and I had no neutrophils and no sort of like white cells to fight off infections, I needed to go and see what this was around my nose and in my ears. I went into the hospital, signed in. As soon as I signed in, my blood test was taken, and I saw the doctor about 3 hours after my blood test come back, and he asked me what was wrong. I told him that I had scab around my nose, scabs around my ear, and would he know what they are? He told me it was an abrasion. So he told me that my white blood cells were down to 0.5 and I was neutropenia. And I said, yeah. He said, well, because you're not ill, you can go home. So I went back home. A couple of days later, I started to feel unwell in my tummy, and I went down to the hospital again. I booked in at the hospital. Straight away, the hospital took my blood test. 3 hours later, I saw the doctor. I explained to the doctor that I'd picked up a tummy infection and I have diarrhea. And he checked me over, he had a look at me, he told me my blood test was back and I was still neutropenia. And I could take Imodium and to go home. So I went back home. About the day after, I started to feel dizzy. And I thought, I better go back to the hospital now because I'm feeling dizzy. And I don't know what's going on because nobody's telling me. I'm just neutropenia. It's a blood disorder that obviously is coming back, and it's just showing up on neutropenia, but it's not giving any other signs out of why I am neutropenia. So I went back to the hospital with feeling dizzy. They took my bloods again, 3 hours later, I seen the doctor. I explained to the doctor, I'm going dizzy. And the doctor asked me, well, is the room spinning round? I said, no, the room isn't spinning round. I said, it's when if I move suddenly or I move sideways, I get a dizziness. So I think the doctor then said that, thank you, the doctor did say then that I could go back home. I didn't need to be in hospital, so I made my stance. I sat there and I said, look, I said, you have a duty of care, just as I have a duty of care in work. I ain't moving from this chair until you find out what is wrong with me. And the doctor was sort of like taken back by this, but he went away. Apparently he had a word with the other doctors, and he came back to me and he said, because of my symptoms and everything, he's going to refer me to the hematology ward, outpatients. And I was there within a week from the hematology outpatients. And my manager was in touch with me all of the time. It was coming to the end of like my 5 days that I had on and my manager sort of like said to me, well, you have got 7 days of self-asserted sickness. So I took the 7 days self-asserted sickness. And in the meantime of them 7 days, I got called into the hematology outpatients, where I met obviously my first consultant. She sent off with lots of. They started off really with taking blood samples, and I had quite a lot of blood samples really over a period of a month, and they still come back. I was neutropenia, but they couldn't find out why I was neutropenia. Now by this time, my doctor's given me a sick note, just an open sick note, saying under hospital investigation. So the next step for my consultant was that she said that she needed to take a bone marrow biopsy, which came round pretty quickly within the next like couple of days or something. They took my bone marrow biopsy, and by this time I think was moving towards maybe March into like April and May time for this biopsy result to come back. My biopsy result came back. I got called into the hospital, and this was about maybe around about the beginning of April, January, February, March, April, May. About sometime around near the end of May, and I got called in to the hematology outpatients ward, which was over on the Christie side of Oldham Hospital, and I met the consultant there, and she explained to me that my results have come back, and I have A.M.L, and that's acute myeloid leukemia. My first question to it was, is it treatable? Is there medicines out there to treat it and obviously fight the infection and make me right? She said, there is, and we will get you started on them. I asked her if it was possible within the next week because I'd been outside a good 6 months with no medication, and I suppose at this point I was feeling quite weak, but I was getting on with it. So she said, we'll get you in within the next 2 weeks. So I went in within the next 2 weeks. They started the chemo. Honestly, it wiped me out for 6 weeks. I was ill, seriously ill. It was all worth it at the end of it because he told me that I was in remission. So from being in remission, after the first chemo, I thought that was really, really good, that. And I went on for about 3 or 4 weeks, and I came back in again for my second round of chemo. I had another biopsy, bone marrow biopsy before it. It showed that I was still in remission. So I went in for my next round of chemo, which was a period of about 5 weeks. I wasn't ill from this one. I managed to withstand the chemo. It was the same strength as the last one, but I managed to get through it. Did a few exercises and what have you. And after that chemo, they told me that they needed to do a bone marrow stem cell transplant, and they were looking for a donor. And within a couple of weeks, a donor came up. I had 2 donors by then, and 2 donors, they were from Germany. They were both young donors, around about 20-year-old. And in November the 29th, 2024, I went in for my bone marrow transplant. And during this time, the transplant went ahead. Obviously, I got very sick again. I was bedbound from the 29th of April up until the 13th of January 2025. So now you know that we're coming into nearly being live now. And it was from that things started to look up. Please subscribe, please like, and I will get back to you in the next video. Thank you. I'll see you later.